So my name's Christine. I'm originally from Ireland. Moved over to Australia about 10 years ago now. Came over for a holiday for a year working and found a career and never left. So I've built a life here and I'm an equine vet, work full time, and I have a partner called Cam. I think the main reason I came was I was having a lot of problems in my relationship. I think there was certainly other factors contributing to that as well, but the primary motivation was that I was really stuck at a crossroads, as in I was either going to leave the relationship I was in or try and address some of the things that were going on in my own life to see if I could salvage that. So intermittently, I had a few little sort of problems along the way. I had tried a bit of cognitive behavioural therapy when I was in Ireland about 10 years ago, just before I came to Australia. I found that quite helpful. And then after that, sort of intermittently, every 3 or 4 years, I'd been to psychologists. And I probably found it helpful at the time, but never actually put into play any ongoing measures to stop any problems reoccurring. It seemed like it was just a bit of a patch up and a crutch, but my actual mindset and behaviours hadn't actually changed as a result of them. Yeah, so I was referred. So a friend of mine had been to Nick and I was working with her at the time, and obviously I've been discussing some of the issues I've been having at home, and she sort of said, listen, I've been to see this person and have found it really helpful in my own life, and I really liked some of the points she'd made and the journey she'd been through, so that inspired me to try something different, because I'd had experiences with psychologists before that had been fine but hadn't really made a long-term difference. I think it was more of a reality check for me. That was the main thing. There was, rather than just sitting there for an hour and talking through whatever problems I'd had and someone just sort of listening and saying, oh yeah, that's a bad experience or a good experience, and giving you a little bit of insight, I found with psychologists that I just kind of spent an hour talking about my problems and would leave feeling quite justified in how I was feeling, but not actually figuring out why I was feeling the way I was or how to change it. But I found the really big thing with MindFit was that there was nowhere to hide from myself. A lot of what I was doing in my life was blaming everybody else for what was happening in my experiences, and it was sort of everything was everybody else's fault and I didn't have any control over what was happening. But MindFit really made me responsible for what I was doing and for myself, rather than pointing the finger at everybody else. And there was really nowhere to hide from the practical realities of what Nick was telling me. And there was no enabling involved, and it was really pointing out where the negative thoughts were coming from and what negative thought patterns I was in. And it was super practical as well. Like I thought of myself as a pretty grounded, intelligent person, but I was really lost in how I was dealing with my emotions and how I was dealing with my certainly my relationship definitely as well. And there was nowhere to hide from the reality of, listen, you're actually on a destructive thinking path. And once I sort of gave into that and actually took responsibility myself for my own emotions and my own actions, then that actually had a really big knock-on effect on the rest of my life as well. So yeah, it was more of a huge reality check than anything else. probably a lot of it was taking that step to actually become less reactive in how I reacted to situations. So in the past, I used to just justify my behaviors by saying, well, this person made me feel bad, or this person made me unhappy. And actually what mindful gets you to do is actually claims responsibility for your own happiness and your own actions. And once I started taking responsibility for my happiness and my responses to emotions and situations, then it had a huge knock-on effect on everybody else's responses and reactions to me as well. And that was probably, the biggest shift, is that it's my responsibility, not anybody else's. And I think it was just claiming responsibility for things yourself rather than outsourcing your happiness. I definitely was stuck in a constant pattern of everyone else being responsible for my happiness, and certainly my partner being responsible for my happiness. And that was a very toxic zone to be in. And once I started transitioning to taking responsibility for it myself, it actually had a huge shift in my relationship as well. Yeah, definitely. I really would. It's probably something you have to be ready to do as well. If you're really stuck in that negative state of mind and feeding off your own emotions and feeding off your own experiences, I don't think it's a great space to be. And it's you really have to be open to change and open to doing something different and open to looking at yourself and how and really kind of changing, like positive changes going forward, to see if you can actually shift where you are at that time. But I think if you're closed-minded to anything, it doesn't have a positive effect. But you definitely have to be brave enough to critique yourself and not offload it on others.